You are now listening to Talk Yo Jits Podcast.
Welcome back to Talk Yo Jits Podcast. This podcast is, as the name implies, all about Jiu Jitsu. I'm your host, Lamar Smith, and today's guest is a two-stripe purple belt who trains at Nova Uniao, Japan, located in Tokyo, Japan. Ladies and gentlemen, Nichols Ditty.
How we doing?
What's up?
Yeah, doing pretty well. Yourself?
I'm doing pretty good, man. I know it's late for you, but it's early for me, so I'll say my day is starting.
That's what happens when you're on the other side of the world. Like everything's kind of topsy turvy.
Yeah, I know, right? All right, man. Well, let's get this ball rolling, man. If you want to formally introduce yourself again, by all means, and let's hear about your jiu-jitsu journey.
So again, my name's Nichols Ditty. Nick is much easier. I've been training jiu-jitsu now. I'm into my 8th year. Training out of Nova Uniao after jumping from a couple of schools. Well, not so much schools, different teachers, I guess. And been with Nova for the last kind of 5 years with those guys, and been here in Japan for 14 years, and yeah, I started doing jiu-jitsu mainly because I'd found training like exercising like with a bar or with like doing weights and stuff like that. Like it was a lot of input, but I'm not really learning anything. It's like I found like a mixture of learning and like learning as well as exercising was really good. I'd done other forms of martial arts beforehand and was really happy with that. And then what's the word? And a good friend of mine introduced me to the idea of doing jiu-jitsu, and like I'd seen judo and I'd seen like MMA, but I was like, jiu-jitsu stuff, I'm not sure what this deal is. But when, like every other person who tries it out, like the bug kicks in and the ball starts rolling.
Oh yeah. That's how it always happens, man. You just gotta try it. Like, you know,
that's it. Like
once
that's half.
You do, it's over.
Like, I mean, as you're probably well aware, I mean, the most important promotion that you'll ever get in jiu-jitsu is not. It's always that first stripe on your white belt, because it just goes to show that you actually gave it a go, you tried, and you've managed to keep on going. Like more than the other promotion that you'll ever get, like, is that first stripe on your white belt, because it just goes to show you tried it and you're actually doing well. Like, so now just you have to keep on going. So yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that's just what they say, man. And I firmly believe that the hardest belt to get is your white belt. And like you said, that first stripe on your white belt, because it's something about it where it's like it's so complex and difficult, but it's like I gotta figure this out. Figure this out. Because one of my first experiences, I got beat by a guy that was like much older than me and a guy that was much younger than me. So it was kind of like, all right, there is no way I should be getting beat up by these people. So when I found it, man, and just finally gave into it, man, I just fell in love, and I was like, yep, I can see myself doing this for a while.
Likewise, like I think is once you get the concept of just like you learn. Like I actually spoke to a white belt who recently joined one of the branches of the team out here. It's almost like relearning how to swim, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
Like you look at it, like, oh, like yeah, like because the question I asked him, I was like, when was the last time you did like a forward roll? He's like, oh, I think I haven't done one since I was like 8. I was like, so guess what? It's gonna feel weird. And he's like in his mid-40s, and he's like, yes, 30 plus years of never doing a forward roll in his life for the last 30 years, and goes, all right, let's so when we do like the mat, like doing the matundo, like doing the mat warm-ups and whatnot, like, and you get him to do a forward roll, he's just like, that felt really weird. I was like, yeah, see, it's like learning to swim all over again. Like, the motion is there, like you've done it before in the past, but it's just kind of like you have to readjust and rebuild yourself, kind of thing, from the ground up.
Yeah, because you're using your body in ways like you said, you haven't used your body like this in how long? When last time you said you like generally just rolled around on the ground?
Yeah,
or twist or flipped or rolled.
Yeah, like when was the last time like you did star jumps? When was the last time you tried like doing a cartwheel? There's one like people are just like, I don't think I've done one since I was in like elementary or primary school. Like people look at you like, what? Like, since when do you need to do cartwheels in jiu-jitsu? But then like later on they go, oh yeah, that's the magic. Like that's the stuff that you need to do. Like, and it's kind of like, yeah, it's once they figure out, yeah, like I can do this, and like, yeah, this really is familiar. I know how to do this. Like, and then you realize, why did I stop doing this? It's actually fun.
Right.
Then you just continue going along.
Yeah, because I never saw myself like doing jujitsu when I was growing up, and when we first started doing class, and like you said, we doing those like front rows, back rolls, and working butterfly butterfly drills and stuff where you kind of like upside down and
Inverting.
going inverted. And it's like, if I was just to take that person that started jiu-jitsu and just showed him a little bit of future, like, okay, this is what you're gonna be doing for like the next 6 years.
Yeah,
like, man, get out of here. I'm not flipping upside down. I'm not.
Yeah, like, what? Going upside down and trying to break somebody's legs and knees? Like, come on. Like, no.
No, right.
But then,
get out of here, man.
But after a while, then they go, yeah, like, that's exactly what I need to be doing, kind of thing. And it just becomes almost like a natural thing. And it's great. It's fantastic.
Oh yeah. And been for doing this so long, and you probably seen this too, but it's something about when you meet somebody, like you said, that never done jiu-jitsu, that never thought about doing jiu-jitsu, and you look, it's like a year or two later, and they're still on the mats, and they're like helping teach and stuff like that. It's very funny, but very, very funny to see that.
Yeah, I think it's like, I think that's the best thing is like, especially in this day and age where we have the tech to actually film it, and then you just film it, and the day that you are going to promote them to their blue belt, and then you kind of just show off like, this is the guy on his first day, and how much he kind of sucked when he first started rolling around, didn't know what he's doing, kind of thing. And now you look at him and he's hunting out there, he's out on the mats having fun, having a laugh, and doing what he does best out there. And I mean, that's the joy that you get when you start moving further up the chain, is the joy of seeing what you experience. You start seeing vicariously through others and go, yeah, I remember how that felt. And how much it initially, inverting, that sucked. The first time you invert, it's like, this is awful. Like, who wants to do this? Like, but after a while, you're like, after time, then like you're at home, and it's just like, instead of like walking, like moving across the floor to somewhere else, you just invert across your shoulders, like, or back roll over to somewhere else. And like, I'm a married man, and I tell you what, my wife just has the question of like there are times where you give her a hug, and it's the like, are you hugging me or are you doing jiu-jitsu? And then you have to take away the elbow grip behind the back. and go, no, baby, I love you. I'm just, I like, yeah, I, like that's the joy that like you learn to have, and then you start seeing in the lower belts that you start teaching and growing and doing it out here, especially that you have to do it in another language that's not English. So
Right.
a lot. So jiu-jitsu out here, like, um, is a very unique. Like, there's nothing else like it. Because Japan kind of not so much segregates, but it is like there's kind of really three major schools of thought when it comes to training jiu-jitsu out here. We have the Brazilian population, which there is a large Brazilian population in Japan. There's a history of Japanese during the 1910s and 20s moving out to Brazil and then coming back to Japan later on, just due to the situation in Brazil and coming back here. And then their methodology of training, which is a lot more relaxed, more kind of like what we see in the documentaries and on YouTube a lot more. You have the US or Western influence of school of thought, which is it comes from wrestling, and then you're mainly dealing with the military and how they want to train out here, and which is very much like what you guys probably do stateside, anyways. And then the Japanese school of thought is a lot of it derives from judo culture. It's not like everybody understands that it's not judo, but everybody understands that it does originate, and therefore most of the motions, most of the movements, exercises, and drills revolve around judo movements. So therefore, like the same, like that's why there's a lot of easier transitions for judokas going from training in judo to jiu-jitsu, because they already know the movements, they're aware of how their body works that way, and the terminology is the same. It's like we started to see it a lot more in the West, where like John Danaher and those guys, and a lot of the American commentary now is using a lot of the Japanese terminologies, like outside ashigarami, or like
Ashirami, yeah.
like doing these kinds of using Japanese terminology over using the English terminology, because over here the school of thought is just like it, like realistically judo and jiu-jitsu are cousins, therefore they speak the same language. Like an ude juji in judo is an ude juji in jiu-jitsu. There's no difference between the two. It's just the school of thought, and the methodology of how you apply the tech is different. Like a judoka doesn't really focus so much on their groundwork, but they still, if you said perform sankaku jime, like a triangle choke, they'd still know how to do it. Like,
right.
Because the terminology is the same. Like things like a normal plata, because it's Brazilian, they look at you funny, like, huh? But if I said to a judoka, like do like ashikansetsuwaza, like they'd be like, okay, cool, I'll do a footlock kind of thing, and they know exactly what I'm on about. So, and the training methodologies are the same, like from judo schools a lot of the time. If you went to the Kodokan here in Tokyo, and you watch, and you can go to and watch for free. You don't have to train. You can go watch their classes for free. What? And it's a beautiful facility. Straight up, like anybody does jiu-jitsu and does come to Japan, going to the Kodokan for like a couple of hours, like it's unreal. Like it's just like you'll watch what they do, and then you'll what's the word? You'll watch what they do, and you go, "That's all the same stuff we do, except they just do more like stand up." And then what you get lost in is obviously the language becomes a point of like where you might get lost, because of course Japanese kind of thing. So, but I've in my journey out here in Japan, like I would say 80 to 90% of the time I'm training in Japanese. I don't speak English when I train. And so it's all like I'm fluent in the language, by the way. So to me, it's all right. It actually helped me grow my language skills at the same time, grow my connection to the community. And yeah, it was very much like, oh, like this makes sense. I actually get like the reverse culture shock when it comes to jiu-jitsu when like I'm originally from Australia. I'm from Melbourne, and when I go back home and I want to train um with like there's a Novo União um out in I think it's in Noble Park out in Melbourne. Marcelino Freitatas, jiu-jitsu, awesome dude. Shout out to that guy. The like he'll teach in English and he'll say something and I'm like, huh? And then I have to say it aloud in Japanese, like what he's doing. And then I'm like, oh, that makes sense. Now I figured that out. I know what you're doing with now. And then people around me like, wait, you're from here. You speak English. You're native in English. Yet when he says something in English, like you don't understand what he's saying. Like the jiu-jitsu terms and how he wants you to move, you don't understand it. I was like, yeah, because out here, like most of the schools will only speak Japanese. So you learn everything in Japanese. So it's this weird kind of like the language locks you in kind of thing. I'm fortunate to be able to do a lot of training with the American military out here as well. So I get to have a bit of English in there, but I would say a good 80 to 90% of my time I'm training in Japanese.
Wow. Man, that's crazy. And how long have you been in Japan?
14 years.
14 years. Wow. Yeah, you kind of pretty much have to.
Well, it'd be a waste. It would be an absolute waste if I didn't speak the language and I lived here as long as I have. Like, it would be a waste. It really would. And then, like, I'm just limiting myself. Which, the beauty of doing jiu-jitsu out here is like one, like that. I was saying before, the school of thought on the way they train is one thing, but then it's like, through the language as well as through training, like they're super friendly. Like Japanese people, like super friendly, crazy technical. Like, there's this real strong belief in like, because I think it's a Helio Gracie saying is like the idea about like even the smallest opponent can like overcome the largest opponent if they commit and execute the technique properly, or something along those lines. But like because again, the average Japanese person is nowhere as big as the average Westerner, so they have to rely on tech a lot more than relying on pure strength and like athleticism. Like what we see in the States a lot more now is like you see a lot more people that are a lot more athletic and a lot more like strength based. They're not like technically as proficient or sound, I guess. Like there's like they'll be fast. Like you watch some of these guys out there like at the top level, like some of these guys are unreal with their tech, but then like you watch, there's a guy named Igor Tanabe who's currently an MMA fighter, but before he was doing jiu-jitsu, he's a half Brazilian, half Japanese dude nicknamed Fat Ninja. He had an excellent match recently. I can't remember the exact name of the event, but he had a match with Jacob Couch from Pedigo Submission Fighting out here in Japan for an event. And when you watched him go, like it was just technically so unbelievably sound that he gets in and he beat Jacob Couch out here. And mind you, Jacob is at a level in the community that he's a rising star. He's really technically sound. He's going to ADCC, and you've got this Japanese guy who goes out there and is just so technically sound that it's just like there's a really strong belief in like if you refine your techniques so much that it should melt like butter. It should absolutely just be like you should have little to no effort in the way that you perform tech. Like your tech, like your like how you execute an armbar or a kimura should be like I should have like little to no effort in using any of my strength to actually finish the job. Like it should be just like I've checked all the boxes, and that's very much what it is like out here. Is that they'll train to the idea of like you've got to be sound at this. Like it doesn't matter how strong you are, how fast you are, if you're crazy athletic or something like that. Yeah, that's great. But if you can't execute this smooth, it means nothing.
Right. Yeah, that just come from drills, man. You know, doing a technique more than once or twice, like really sitting down and breaking down the technique to make it work for your body and understanding those fundamentals to the point where, yeah, like you said, you should be able to effortlessly hit these techniques no matter what position that you are. So yeah, I mean, that's something that we kind of preach a lot, man. We teach our techniques and we just tell people like, hey, I got time, let's drill, let's drill on each side a few times. Don't just do it once or twice think you understand it. Like, no, drill it with your partner, drill it with other people, drill it with other body types, because all that stuff comes into factor when you're rolling. And I see that a lot when people get so used to training with one person and then they go roll with someone else. They're like, man, I couldn't figure out how to get this. I was like, yeah, because he's a whole different body type. So you kind of have to adjust to that.
Yeah, it's that. It's very much that, and it's very much adjusting to it. But then it's very much a school of thought of what's the word? Like it's the breaking down of the science behind it. Like there's almost like an education of just like understanding the fundamental science behind why does this move hurt? Why does this move actually choke? Why does this pressure? If I do like or psychomi properly, like if I go into side control properly, why does my opponent not move? And understanding the fundamental science behind it. And I mean, it comes from both science and then also from, you'll notice a lot of old schools out here will also take from things from Wing Chun and like the center line theory of like, if you're like this in a straight line, like this is really strong, but the instant you go like this, oh, cool. Like there's leverage, there's things like that. And understanding the science behind it is super huge out here where people go, oh, like if you work it as like a science equation, like suddenly it's like, oh, this makes all sense. Then you start executing it and it's like, oh, like now I don't actually have to use when I do rear naked choke, like a Mother de Leon, if I set this up correctly and make it sure it's smooth, all I have to do is just breathe in one time and let my lungs expand.
Yeah.
And the choke is done. I don't need to like this kind of like struggle to muscle out a choke. Like I should just be like you're in, and all I do is I expand my lungs, and you'll feel the choke. Like it should be done, and that's how training out here works. Is like they break it down to a science, into the idea of like, why do you do this? and then then you drill that. Once you've got the equation, then they go, okay, here's the equation. Now write it out 1,000 times.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a guy. I was doing like an open mat at this school, and we were, we were just going over a couple things, and we came up about the rear neck choke, and he said, "Yeah, man, I know how to do it, blah blah blah." So I said, "Show me." So he goes for the rear neck choke, and he's like, he's rearing back and almost like lifting me up off my feet, and I'm like, "Okay, all right, let me show you mine." So locked it in, put the elbows down, took that deep breath, and he's like, man, he was just so shocked. I was like, yeah, a lot of the stuff that we do does not require strength. It does not require strength whatsoever.
No.
And I was like, I promise you, I can teach anybody how to do a proper rear neck choke, and it would be effective on any size. And just so happened, it was a kid there. I think he's about like 8 or 9. And I was like, "Have you ever done jiu-jitsu?" He was like, "No." I was like, "Good, come here." So I had him, showed him, showed him how to lock it up, and I told him like, "All right, this is how you're gonna do it. You're gonna bring your elbows like you're trying to put them in your back pocket. You're gonna give yourself a big hug and take a deep breath." And he was like, "Okay." And instantly, as soon as he did it, my man was like, tapping all crazy. And I'm like, it don't take much. It does not take much. You don't have to be the strongest guy in the room. Like, as long as you got the fundamentals down in jiu-jitsu, it's golden. And
it's golden.
just like you said, like, that center line, we in our like rules and philosophy that we follow, that's important. If you are, if you're on top, you want to be head over head. You want to be centered with your opponent, with your opponent that's under you. And as soon as you tilt off to the side, that's their escape. There's their opening to escape, because your weight is shifted now. So, and every time we watch people roll, and especially like the newer people, we always say, "Hey, follow your rules, follow your principles, follow your rules." And they'd be like, "You're not telling me nothing." I was like, "Oh no, we're telling you everything. like we're telling you everything that you need to do, because we can teach you, 1,000,001 techniques.
Yeah.
But if you don't have those fundamentals down, none of this shit will work."
Absolutely.
You need that foundation.
Mm.
Without it, your games is non-existent.
Very much so. And I think there's a real out here, particularly, there's a real focus on that. Like, there's not a lot of flash technique out here recently. Like, a lot of what the trends happen in the States and Brazil and what happens in worlds, it doesn't really come here because they go, well, that's nice. Like, the best example of this is like the buggy choke, right? Like, they go, that's nice. But if I do this, then like
Then it shuts it down.
Then it shuts it down. And they look again, it goes back to that idea of science. They look at it as a percentage of like, if I get there and I'm this flexible, like, then like I want my finishes to hit 90% of the time. If I'm gonna do a finisher, like if I want to finish a move, it needs to work 90% or more. I'm not gonna remember something that's not gonna finish. If I'm gonna like a buggy choke can finish, like if you set it up right and the opponent is the same size as you, yeah, it's gonna finish. But if you come up against a bigger person, like you're not gonna be able to buggy choke them. They're gonna be too big. The pressure is not there. And if they're a smaller person than you, then it might not work either, because they might just slip through.
Right.
It's a factor. But then like you'll see like a lot of the Japanese out here will just stick to real old school stuff. Nothing flash, nothing fancy. But the thing is that everything has a 90% finish rate. If you sit into a heel hook is going to finish. If you're going to sit, like if you're going to omoplata properly, it's going to work. Like, yes, there are escapes to all of these, but at the same time, like if you checked all the boxes and done your equation correctly and the science is right, it's going to work. The science is not wrong. And so like a lot of teachers out here, like you've got newer schools out here for sure. Like Japan, there is a lot of newer schools cropping up, especially with the rise of MMA. Lots of MMA gyms will have jiu-jitsu classes on the side. But a lot of the time, they don't really teach new techniques, like things like K-guard or like what else? Like rubber guard is another example. Like it's here, but again, people won't teach it because it's inefficient in certain ways. Like because like okay, if you tried to do this, then okay, and like they have a different perspective on it because they look at it as a science equation. They don't look at it as a way of like, oh, this is a finish, and yeah, if I drill this is going to work on everybody. It's more like, ooh, the science doesn't make up to them. So as long as I've been training out here, like that's always kind of been the case, is that they always look at it as more like a science equation because they think like there's a phrase in Japanese, like it's kind of an open mat thing, but they call it jishuren, like which means like free time practice kind of thing. But it's more like they research. They go, if I'm put in this position and you're here, like how do we, like what are your options? If you were to think, like a good example is like if you're in a deep, let's say you're in the, like somebody's got you in the deep half, like you're in the deep half and then you're on top. But how do you, like your opponent who's asking you the question, it's like, okay, what are your escape tactics from here? Like, how do you as a person escape my deep half? And then you'll drill that for half an hour to an hour and just asking questions about like, well, if I do this, what happens here? Like, and you're just essentially, it's like a room full of scientists, people just looking at tech and looking at ways of not just drilling, but then asking the question of like, if I do this slight adjustment, what happens? Like, if I'm in the De La Hiva, the difference, it's like asking the question, if I'm in De La Hiva and I'm grabbing the pant leg versus De La Hiva cupping the ankle, or De La Hiva and pistol gripping the pant leg, like what's the, even though it's such a small difference between it, what is the actual like what's the result? If I change the equation slightly, how does this affect? And they'll drill for hours. You'll see them and they'll ask questions about it, and then they'll find what's the best methodology and stick to it. They'll go, okay, this works out, like we'll do it this way instead. And like, and it's a double-edged sword, to be fair, like, because yes, it's refined and it looks great, but then when they go out into the rest of the world, like Japanese guys aren't, there's only maybe two, I can maybe three off the top of my head I can really think that are like world-class levels of jiu-jitsu that are Japanese guys, and that's Imanari, Shinya Aoki, and I'm talking active competitors here, like because of course, like guys like Yuki Nakai, who's like Nakai Sensei, he's phenomenal. Like, does he actively compete? No, but like the guy is, first of all, the guy is an amazing dude, purely one of the nicest human beings on earth. But he's not actively competing, so I'm not putting him into this bracket. So I've got Imanari, Shinya Aoki, and I think his name is Iwamoto. He's training out of B Team. He just was on Who's Number One the other day. Had the match with what's his name, Gaval, on Who's Number One. Like that's the top level guys. But when you watch those guys, they're not doing anything flash or crazy. Like they do all kinds of really basic stuff really good. Like Imanari is a great example of a guy who, yeah, he's invented stuff. He's an innovator, but again, he's refined it so well that like the difference between Ryan Hall doing an Imanari roll versus Imanari himself doing an Imanari roll is two completely different things.
Oh yeah.
Like Ryan Hall, let's take like even somebody like Craig Jones doing an Imanari roll versus Imanari himself doing it. The level of refinement is unreal. How smooth he gets into it is unreal. The only person I've ever seen, Mikey Musumeci is probably the only guy I've ever seen try and do an Imanari roll as smooth as him. Like Shinya Aoki is a lunatic. Like he's so refined with his tech. It looks ferocious, but the reality is he's so refined. Like another guy I could say is the Shia Kamikubo who's currently fighting in ONE FC. Again, it's basic stuff that's so refined. Like that samurai mentality has translated over time into this thing of like, yes, we don't carry swords. No, our kimonos are not the same as what we once used to wear. But the methodology to it all, the science behind it is the same. Mm-hmm. We refine our tech to a point that it's just, I've met lots of Americans who've come out here who have trained with Japanese people, and they like the way that they then look at their own tech and go, like, if my knife, I think my knife is really sharp, but then they see a Japanese person with the same kind of knife, and then they go, their knife is way sharper than mine. Why is that?
Right.
It's just refinement of science to a point. But the double-edged sword to that is that like you're not expanding your knowledge. You're just focusing in, and there's a lot of that happening in there's a lot of that happening here in Japan.
Yeah, it's that's what I love about jiu-jitsu, man. It's not cookie cutter. Not one technique is going to look the same when I do it versus you do it, and that's okay, and that's okay because everyone's not built the same. Everyone doesn't have the same body type, body length, or whatever. And like you said, like the way I do a Kimura or my Kimura set up from whatever position, yeah, it may work for me, but it may not necessarily work for you. So you might, you have to change it up, or there might be something that you do that I can incorporate on how I do it. Right. This is, just how jiu-jitsu work, man. It's a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of science behind it. It's a lot of very, very, I guess you want to say, basic understanding of the body mechanics, because everyone who trains jiu-jitsu or have done a jiu-jitsu class know Americana, or Kimura and stuff like that. But what if your shoulders are more flexible? What if they're a lot, arms are much longer? What if their arms are but much shorter? Like, do you know how to adjust to that? Because like you said, like you may have a sharp sword, but that next samurai walking up the road, his sword just a little bit sharper than yours. So,
and how he swings it, you've trained. Like it's the idea of like you've trained with the idea of like you swing your sword on a 25-degree angle.
Mm-hmm.
He's trained his sword to maybe swing at a 30-degree angle, and then you can't go, well, he's not swinging his sword correctly. Or is it that fact that you're not able to adjust 5 degrees to a different angle that allows for you to still finish the same tech?
Right. Oh yeah.
Like it's that thought process for sure.
And you see it a lot. It's like they're working something. It's like, oh man, I can't seem to get this arm bar right. I mean, or this, Americana right. And it's like, okay, well, show me what you're doing. And I was like, oh yeah, because you didn't adjust that angle.
Yeah.
Turn your head towards the hand and now go. And it's like, tap, tap, tap. And it's like, yeah, see, working too hard.
At some point, like you probably figured it out a lot earlier than I did, but like I think everybody in the jiu-jitsu game at some point finds out that jiu-jitsu gets real lazy at some point. Like,
yeah,
she never really work like super duper hard. It's like,
yeah,
if you've refined it so well, like it's like why you see some of these old school black belt dudes and they'll roll for ages, like 10, 15, 20-minute rounds. Why? Because to them it's more about like, it's not about like stamina or like trying to get as much in as whatnot or go really, really fast and keep the pace up and going. To them, it's like, it's all up here. It's all like, it's also like the pacing is different, like because you have to think more, really look at your angles, look at my opponent. If my opponent is bigger than me, I need to think more about how do I finish this. If I am looking at an omoplata and I'm going to finish on somebody who's bigger than me, how am I going to adjust this? And it's more, you have to think more about it. But being that you have to think more, you have to kind of also relax and just be a bit lazy. Like sitting guard for a bit. Control it. Just be like, okay, how do I do this? And then it comes. Like, you see it all the time. Every white belt's like, I'm going to Toriano pass him, I'm going to smash, get it through, kind of thing. And then, like, you watch this black belt just sit there, eyes closed, just going, today's lunch is really nice. I really like, I had a really good sandwich. Coffee was great. His arm's going down now. He's coming now. All right, and bang! There's the triangle and the white belt. The white belt goes, oh, you're so amazing! What? And it's just like the black was like, oh, hey, how's it going?
Man, I think one of the first few times that happened to me. I think I was still a brown belt. Yeah, or was it purple? I think it was a brown belt. And I was rolling with this one guy. He's done Army combative. He's wrestled in high school. Just a juggernaut, dude. Just a juggernaut. So we were rolling, and we're going, and I think, what did he catch me now? Like Americana or something. And I was like, all right, that was stupid. That was very, very stupid. And I was like, all right, dude, do not match this guy's speed. Do not match this guy's speed. You're not going to be able to. So we rolled again, and I'm laying there. He's on top. He's moving from side control to mount to this and this and that. I'm just kind of like keeping myself calm and, just listening to whatever's going on around me, having conversations with people around me. And at one point I just stopped, and I just felt him go. I was like, yeah, there it is. I was like, that's what we were working on. Then I end up coming from like bottom side up to his back, and then he kind of like tried to do a roll, like a front roll, and I caught him in a crucifix, and it was like a short choke from crucifix. And I just sat there and I thought about that the whole time. I was like, man, if I play my own game right, it works out fine.
Yeah,
it works out just fine. So like since then, man, I stopped trying to match speed with anybody. I'm like, nah, bro, if we gonna roll, we gonna go at this pace. They're like scrambling to do everything. I'm just like,
5 minutes is a long time.
It's a very long time to roll.
5. And then when you get some of the places out here, they'll do 8-minute, 10-minute rounds. And I know outside of like, there are some schools out here that do the old 3.5-minute rounds because they want to be like super competitive. Like, it's about speed and you're gonna finish real fast, so kind of things. And yeah, for competition stuff, yeah, you want to pick up the speed a bit more. But a lot of the schools out here, you'll see them 5, 6 minutes, 8 minutes. There's some old places out here that'll do 10-minute rounds, which I love watching other people go into a 10-minute round, and then by minute 6, they're like, "Wait, what? Why is the timer not going off? I'm tired. I need to stop."
I know, right?
And then you see the other person who's very much used to 10-minute rounds. It's just like, okay, now I go. Now it's the time to let's go. And then you get the reverse too of when they go out to a place that does 3.5-minute rounds, and it's just like, wait, what?
We just getting warmed up.
We just like, what's going on? Can you explain, please? Like, kind of thing. So, like, yeah, it's out here. There's a lot of different methodologies, but again, I think the greatest part of me learning jiu-jitsu out here has been the it's a really great way to learn the culture out here, like, and how not so much like the old like green tea sushi samurai, all the touristy kind of stuff, but you learn how Japanese people are, because a lot of them are just really like you and me, just regular people kind of thing, and then you just talk and then you get on the mat, like, and like I'm not a small dude. I'm about 5'11", probably weigh about 220, and I'm not a small dude by any stretch of the imagination.
Yeah,
but I've got one of my teammates. He's about 5'3", 5'4", and weighs like, what, I think like 100, 130, 140, but less actually, probably about 120, 130, and he weighs a $109, doesn't weigh anything, but he'll kick the shit out of me. He's a like vicious dude, and it's just because he's so refined at what he does, and like, it's something that I've seen a lot of foreigners, including myself. I've caught myself in this kind of trap out here in Japan. Is that like, we've been told by the Western school of thought and methodology that it takes thereabouts 10 years to get your black belt, and so you kind of do the maths, and it's like, all right, so I've done 6 years, like. At 6 years, I get my purple belt. At 8 years, I get my brown belt. And then 2 years afterwards, I get my black belt. And yay, woohoo, like, we've made it to the start line. Versus out here, like, a lot of schools are very much like, whenever your teacher feels like promoting you, he will promote you. I mean, I've been a purple belt for 4 years now. I got promoted in June of 2020. I got promoted to purple belt. And I've been a purple belt for 4 years. Now, some people will say, "Oh, it's sandbagging. It's bad. He's just taking your money. He's taking you for a ride." But I think there's a lot of pride, and it comes again from this judo school of thought of just like, you're a reflection of your teacher. And so if he's going to give you a belt or he's going to give you a stripe, like, it's coming from him. And so when somebody asks you your lineage or asks you where you get your belts from, and you say you're from here, people don't question you. Like, no. I noticed that in seeing online a lot more is like in the States, they'll like McDojo, like fake black belts and fake upper belts and whatnot. And you see it a lot more overseas, but over here you don't see it because, like, if you're going to sit one, the community over here is a lot smaller, but then two, like, if you say that, somebody's gonna contact that person and say, "Do you know this person? And did you promote them?" And if they said no, then you're caught out instantly. Public
Yeah.
shame. The public shame for it is huge. So there's so it's not uncommon to see in Japan to hear stories of like somebody getting the black belt after 16, 18 years of training jiu-jitsu. And some, like, from a Western standpoint, it does look like, oh, they're just taking you for a ride. They're taking your money for your gym memberships and whatnot. But people have lives. So,
Yeah.
like, it can't be rolling all the time. You can't be constantly on the mats and doing this like in the States or whatnot. It's more like you're going to end up in, like, you'll see more often than not for people here is that you'll get one, maybe 2 times a week worth of training. And then if you get married and have kids, guess what? Haha. If you get 1 time a week, great.
Yeah.
That's great. But otherwise, bad luck. So it's not uncommon to see people who have trained 16, 18 years out here in Japan doing jiu-jitsu. But those guys, when you roll with those guys, they're monsters. Those black belts, they're monsters. Because you got to think that's like that same guy, who he's the same age as me. He's 36 and he weighs he's 5'4" and weighs $109. And he had been training jiu-jitsu since he was 18. So he spent half of his life training jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And he only got his black belt last year. So some people, it looks like sandbagging, it looks like that, but nobody's ever going to question that black belt because he'll kick the shit out of them.
No, not at all.
And then the teacher, it's the same thing. It's like when the school has a reputation of like making killers and making these black belts who nobody questions their lineage of, then they go, oh, like you can just mention the name of the school and they go, oh, okay, yeah, that guy, he's a legit black belt. He'll fuck you up. Like, which way to know how? Like, that's just the real is the thing. There's no kind of question about it. Like, people just go, oh, like he's the real deal. And when you roll with them, they're mean.
Right. Oh yeah. I used to question that too. Like when I first started training, like when you hear people that's been at like a certain belt for so long, like I've been a blue belt for 4, 5, 6 years, or I've been a purple belt for 6 years, and blah blah blah. And I used to think that too, like either like, are you guys are not training enough? Do you guys just suck? Like, what is it like what's going on? But the more I've talked to people on the podcast and just in general, like, obviously life gets in the way. Sometimes your instructor might not think that you're ready, but you might be missing something, but after a while, man, he's like, you kind of don't care about the belt no more. It doesn't take away from what you know. It just, to me, it just shows that, okay, you got your black belt. That signifies that you understand jiu-jitsu. Well, you still got to learn it. There's still a lot to learn, but it's like, okay, yeah, you understand you understand jiu-jitsu now. Now it's time for you to learn jiu-jitsu.
Well, it's the phrase commonly said out here is that you've made it to the start line.
Oh yeah.
Like this is where you start. It's not about like all that other time, all the blood, sweat, and tears that go on. Like this is the start line.
Yeah.
And you have a direct connection to a teacher who has their connection through most likely Yuki Nakai. And then that lineage is very clear. So Like the line is there, and once you get to the line, it's on you.
Yeah. Same thing I explained to a couple people. I got my black belt last year, and they was like, "Oh man, you got your black belt. What do you do now?" I learned. Like I'm just starting, and he was like,
Right.
"You've been training for this long, and what do you mean?" I was like, "Well, think of it like this. Think of a doctor. They go to school for 6 to 8 years, or how long it takes for them to go through school. They go through school for that long, get their doctorate, and then they become a doctor. Then they have to apply what they've been learning. They have to still learn as it evolves.
But yeah, that's right. They still have to continue to learn because medical and technology continues to grow. Therefore, like jiu-jitsu is no different. It's like, yeah, you're a black belt, but like you might go to a school and they teach an armbar differently to the one that you've been doing for the last 12 years, and you go, oh, that's new.
Yeah.
Let's give that a whirl. Ooh, I like this. This is much better than how I've been doing it. Okay, I gotta learn.
Yeah. I went to a friend of mine's school, and I was brother with one of their black belts, and he caught me in this crazy Darce choke from side. And once he did it, I kind of sat there and I replayed it back in my mind. I was like, oh yeah, he set that up perfectly. And he's like, oh, you all right? I was like, no. I'm just replaying what just happened. I was like, okay, let's do it again. Like, show me exactly what you did. And, it was a crazy setup on how he did it. And I was like, oh, all right. I like that. I like that.
Yeah. I'm the longer I've been doing it, and mind you, I'm nowhere near the start line right now. Like they're very similar mindset of just like I'll roll with somebody and they do something. I'm like, and asking them in Japanese and they can go, oh, like it's the greatest. I tell you what, one of the greatest things about training out here is, especially when you know the language, is the reaction of like, because initially they're kind of afraid of like, oh, you could be the big scary American who's like, I thought ego show they like don't speak English, and then you're like, Nihongo daijoubu yo, Japanese is fine. They're like, and suddenly you're a friend. Mm-hmm. That's how you make friends. It's like once they see that, and you're like, oh. And I mean, it's the other way around. They see it too, and like you're trying to speak English to them, and then they come out and they speak English to you. Like, oh, thank God somebody speaks my language.
Right.
But yeah, you'll ask them in Japanese. You'll ask them like, how do you do that? Like, I was at a big open mat, or the like in Japanese it's called the Sekai Oyajikai, like the world old man get together, like old man jiu-jitsu get together. So it was like a big open mat for people over the age of 30. So there's no little young killers that are out there, these adult like 18-year-olds who've been training since they're 5. They're out there to break some 50-year-old's arm. Like they're just people over the age of 30 who want to train and spar and together and do this open mat. And I went with this one guy, and he got me in lasso. And I'm like, I've been here before, like lasso, let's do this. And suddenly, boop, and I'm like, ow, that fucking hurt. What the fuck was that? And then I realized, and he laughs at me. He's like, I got you. I was like, I looked down and I was like, he got me with a fucking wrist lock from lasso, God. This guy, like, and I'm sitting there for 30 seconds just going, yeah, he got me. This guy, he's over here. He's clowning about going like he's in Lesser God, he's chilling. I'm combat base, I'm chilling. We're just figuring out who's gonna go first and see what the hell happens. Boop. Ow, that fucking hurt. What was that? wrist lock from Lasso guy. And I was like, show me what you did. He's like, all I did was this. I got a tight lasso and went here. I'm like, I see you, but that's stupid. But, but it's that perspective again. Like as a Westerner from the outside, you're like, nobody's gonna hit me with a wrist lock from there. Go on, like no, that's not how it works. And then, but from a Japanese point of view, they like that's a legitimate option.
Right.
Why wouldn't you explore that? Like that's a part of the equation. If you're in a strong lasso guard position, why wouldn't you hit if the wrist is just floating there, and especially if they're grabbing the belt and whatnot, why wouldn't you hit the wrist lock? You're a purple belt. I'm allowed to do that to you. Like, yeah, you are allowed to do that to me. I'm just annoyed that I did not see it. But that's the joy of jiu-jitsu, and especially when they explain it in Japanese to you, just like, yeah, that makes sense. And not a hoodle, I get you. Like on that drill, like, come on. Like,
Those inner monologues that you have, man, with yourself.
like, and then afterwards, you're really conscious of it, and especially like again, they'll hit it. They'll try and hit it again and again and again and again, the same shit on you over and over again. And you think, I've defended it. I know what's coming. You're gonna do this again, and yet you get caught with it again, and you're like, why? And it goes back to what we were saying before. I think my knife is sharp. Theirs is just sharper for whatever reason.
Right. Yeah. I love those conversations you have with yourself, man. You be rolling and it's like, okay, I know what's about to happen. And then you blink and something else completely happened. You're just like laying there like, how did we end up in this position? Like what? I knew this was coming. How did I not stop it? I've done that to a lot of students. Like we'll be working something and I'm like, oh, let me try something real quick and hit them with something. They're looking at me like, what the hell? I'm like, all right, come on. Let me show you how I did it. So
very much so.
All right, Nicholas. We have a question we ask everybody who comes on the show, man. It became a staple for Talk Yo Jits Podcast. Your top 3 people, past or present, who would you love to get a chance to roll with?
Ooh, that's difficult because I've kind of checked off the ones that I've wanted to.
Okay.
Like my first one was Nakai Sensei, like Yuki Nakai. I got the honor to roll with him. Like, he has like probably the big, I guess, like in Japan, like the schools out here are very much the old school ones that you really don't see much in the competition scenes that you see a lot of anymore. You see a lot of like in Tokyo, in the Kanto region, you'll see lots of like palestra and carpe diem. Like out here, like Heisen, who's now rolling with B Team, was a carpe diem guy. For reference, but palestra was the original jiu-jitsu teams along with Gracie Baja, but it's kind of split that like Gracie Baja stays in Kansai towards Osaka and Kyoto versus like Tokyo's a bit more wild out here. But I got the honor to roll with him once at a gym near my old place where I used to live on the west side of Tokyo, and that was like the man is near 60, but you would never know it. And then the whole time he's laughing and smiling, and you're just like, at one point you're like, this is so great, but it pisses me off that he's just laughing and smiling. Like I want to be like one of them guys and I was a blue belt at the time, and I was like, I just want to submit him once and be like, yeah, I submitted Yuki Nakai, I'll be like that. But this is Yuki Nakai. Like, this is jiu-jitsu royalty at this point. Like, so he's one for sure. But again, big props to that guy. He's one of the nicest dudes on the face of the earth. And again, you'll see him walking down the street. Wouldn't think twice if this is like the top dude in Japan for jiu-jitsu, like dust. Other guys that I would like to roll with. That's really hard. I've been really impressed with the Pedigo guys. I think what they're doing, and particularly what Flo brought through with those guys with the Daisy Fresh documentary, I've been really impressed with. I think not so much just rolling with one dude, but even just the opportunity to train with like Heath and the boys and girls over at PSF, I think would be an amazing like opportunity. And I missed out. I missed out on my last one. I did have the opportunity to do so, but I missed out by this much on it. But Shaolin, as an Victor Shaolin, he's one of those guys who's he's affiliated with my team, and came from he's an Andrea Pedres black belt straight out of Brazil. That Shaolin sweep that everybody loves to do and see, like it's a purple belt favorite. Everybody at purple belt's like, yeah, I'm going to do the Shaolin sweep because that looks sick. And when you show it to a white belt, they're like, oh, the magic has appeared. Yeah, the guy who invented that sweep, yeah, I'd love to roll with that guy. He came out for a seminar, I think it was 2018 or 2019 he came out. And I had work commitments and I missed out on that, and that sucked a lot. But no, so I've ticked 1 out of 3, and because I mean, Yuki Nakai was like the big one, like that was huge, properly huge.
Okay, good. Well, all right, man. Unless you got any questions for me, man. Anything else you want to add or whatnot?
Yeah, I did have a question. Like for you, as somebody who's trained stateside, like, do you like? I've always wondered because, as I was saying earlier on in the podcast, the idea of that like out here, a lot of the training, the regiment of training out here is very much comes from judo. So you'll do your warm ups, you'll do your mat, like your matundo, like kind of I guess mat drills, which in I guess English translate as a part of warm ups. I'm not sure, but that kind of structure, like for your school, do you find yourself as an instructor, do you put a lot of placement and energy into like doing mat drills, like solo mat drills, or is it more kind of like you just go into tech and rolling and you'll do a little bit of stretching and that's about it? Like I'm more curious about like your structure of how you would run, like how would your structure for a class, like as a teacher, like as a black belt, how do you structure your class?
It kind of depends on what's being worked that day. Because what we do, like I was, before we started, I was explaining to you how me and a training partner, we open up our own school. And so I teach like the no gi classes, he teaches the gi classes, and we kind of piggyback off of what the other person taught the previous day. So but in his basic class structure, we usually try to do like drills and warm-ups that's pertain to like today's lesson. So, like, for example, if we're doing triangle drills, we'll do like, work, like solo triangles, just a little bit of hip mobility, just shooting your legs straight up to kind of like just get used to the motion of what of finishing a triangle, and then we go into like the actual technique.
Okay.
Yeah, but like I said, it kind of depends on what the day is. If it's like a more simpler day, we just kind of like, okay, we're just gonna go into technique. But if it's like something that requires a little bit more setup, like if we're doing the hip bump sweep, we'll drill that, we'll drill the motion for a minute, get the understanding down, and then go into the technique.
Okay, so there's less of a generalized warm up and more kind of concentrated warm up.
Yeah.
Okay, that's interesting because again, out here where it's generalized, like you'll do probably about 30 different mat exercises before you even start getting into tech, and the tech might not even relate to what you've done on the mat drills beforehand, like the matundo. I really don't know the English for these things. Like I'm trying to translate in my brain sometimes. Like there are words and phrases in my brain. I'm like, oh god, like, what is that word? And like matundo is a great example of like undo means exercises, so it quite literally translates to mat exercises. But mat exercises is not the same as like what you guys would do for warm ups, like kind of things like forward rolls, backward rolls, technical stand ups, shrimping, reverse shrimping, like, and then you get into like.
We call them like we do like drills or snakes, or they call them snakes. Some people call them shrimps. So we'll do a set of those as well. So
okay, yeah, so out here you'll do like a generalized, like it doesn't put like, for example, like today, like if I was running a class, like, and the class was going to be like, we're going to be working like single leg and X guard kind of stuff, but I'll still do wrestling tackles, and like you're still doing your wrestling tackles. You'll still do like inverting. You'll still do cartwheels. You'll still do things like alligator crawls, and I guess things like you do 30 or more different kinds of mat drills to as a part of a generalized warm up. Then you'd stretch, and then you get into tech. So it's interesting to me to hear that from your school. Like it's more like you'll focus on like, okay, so if today's class is on triangles, I'm going to be doing more exercises and warm ups that cater towards that versus like a generalized school of thought.
Yeah,
that's interesting to me. Do you find that that's more efficient as a teacher, like because of course you have time restraints and whatnot. It's your school, like you're running, like you've got like, I guess it's like an hour for a class, and if your hour for the class is there, then like you can't be doing 30 different warm ups. You have to only do like maybe half a dozen to a dozen.
Right, and that's what we try to tailor it to. We have our classes 3 days. Well, now it's 3 days a week. But we only have class for like an hour and a half. So we try not to, throw so much at somebody and then try to get into the technique. Because by that time, everyone be like, tired and ready to go to bed. Because our class is like 8 p.m. here. So so we have an hour class. We have a late class. So we just try to compact as much as we can without overloading anybody. So we'll do, like I said, we'll do specific things depending on what we're working on that day, and then go into the technique for like 45 minutes maybe, and then for the last 15 minutes, we're like, if people want to stay over and drill, they can. If they want to get a live roll in, they can. So that's how we run it. Well, that's how we kind of do classes.
That's really interesting to me because, again, as somebody at my rank, like I'm developing a teaching game more so than like learning more new moves. It's about how do I teach the shit that I already know.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, to me, finding that like how they do it out here versus how it's done stateside or in Australia or in somewhere else in the world, like in Brazil, like learning these different schools. I've been using that phrase too much, but it is really that. It's this thought pattern, like, and how you run it helps me develop my teaching game. And so to me, that's always very interesting.
Oh yeah, man. If you want to talk about that, man, we can talk about that anytime. Anytime.
I would be honored.
Oh man, unless you got anything else for me, man, you want to let the people know what you got coming up. If you got anything coming up, man, the floor is all yours.
I don't have anything majorly coming up, but again, like, please feel free to hit me up on the Reddit. About like if you are coming through to Japan, I'm more than happy to show around to different schools and introduce and translate for people coming out here. It's I guess the last thing to say is like my whole thing really, as well as to be I had a really good senpai of mine, a really good senior of mine passed away a few years ago in a motorcycle accident named Sonny. And his whole thing was like bridging the gap between foreigners and Japanese here in Japan doing jiu-jitsu. And for me, I want to try and carry his legacy. So for those who are coming to Japan, who are listening to this podcast, and they're like, I actually really want to give like training in Japan a go, but I have no clue where the fuck to go or who to speak to, like, please hit me up on the Reddit. I'm there. Like, just shoot me a message. Yeah, I really appreciate this time talking with you, and yeah, like, I want to share my experiences in the world that I've learned so much about with so many other people who, I guess, yeah, what's the word? I want to be able to share the world that I've learned over here with those who already know it, but from a different angle, kind of thing. So if you are planning to come to Japan, like Lamar, I'd be honored if you come to Japan and come and train out here. Anywhere that you want to, I'm more than happy to come and translate and talk whatnot for you if you need it.
Oh, definitely, man. I definitely gonna hold you to that offer. That's a bucket list of mine to expect to travel for one thing, but all these all your amazing people that I'm meeting on this podcast. It's like, man, I want to be able to sit down the road with you guys. So it's on the list, man. So you're on that list. So once we figure something out, man, you'll be the first person I'll know. I'll let know.
Thank you. That would be amazing.
No problem, brother. Man, it was great talking to you, man. Great talking to you on the other side of the world right now. So
I'm very surprised that I'm still awake. It's nearly 2:00 in the morning here in Japan.
Yeah. All right, but I do appreciate it, man. I do appreciate you taking the time to doing this,
appreciate you giving me this opportunity. I know not many people from my part of the world come on and talk with you from where we are, but
no,
yeah,
you're the
I really
first.
appreciate it.
First from Japan. Like I said, I greatly appreciate it. All right, man. That's the end of today's episode. I would like to thank Nicholas one more time for coming on the show and bless us with his jiu-jitsu knowledge. Hope you guys enjoyed. Please go and follow our Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube page to stay up to date on all future episodes. This has been Talk Yo Jits Podcast. Keep rolling, keep grinding, and remember, long live jiu-jitsu. Have a great day. And we're done.